Greetings to all Dhamma friends. Greetings to Mr. Deepak Anand ji. Thank you so much for joining us. Deepak, are you in Vaisali?
No, I'm at Vaisali.
Oh, so I'd like to introduce you to our entire Dhammadharini community who are present now. There may be some more who are coming on later. Also, we're recording, so we'll be able to share this later on. Both Navas Kachayana and I, together with our friend Nekama Upasika Windy, not this last winter, but the winter before, we went to Bodh Gaya, and I had expressed interest in learning about some of the ancient sites that were important for our awakened women foremothers in Buddhism. Tuck was recommended as the foremost guide to be able to share information with us about the ancient sites. And so we learned about a number of places of interest that were just being even discovered that year, around that time. And he has continued with his amazing work, which I hope he'll tell you something about, walking in the footsteps of the Buddha, reviving the Buddha Charika, the ancient pilgrimage trails between the important holy sites in the Buddha's life and for the Buddhist monastic communities and greater Buddhist community places of gathering, the holy sites over the millennium before Buddhism took a big pause in its homeland. So now at this time, Deepak has some kind of amazing karma with the old Chinese pilgrim Xuanzang. And it's thanks to Xuanzang that many of the sites that are being rediscovered are able to be located, because in his pilgrim diaries, he left quite precise instructions. So even now, I think it is working now in a 2,000 kilometer or 4,000 kilometer foot journey, tracing the footsteps of the Buddhist monastic pilgrim Xuanzang. He's visiting the sites that have been found and searching for ones that have not yet been rediscovered. And he's some new discoveries recently related to our ancient awakened foremothers, women in Buddhism, and also especially he's got really good knowledge related to the sites that are important in the Buddha's story on this full moon night, this Asada or Asalha Full Moon night. And now the Buddha's great going forth, Abhinishkramana or Abhineka, going forth, leaving the palace life, going forth as a seeker, and then 6 years later, then turning the wheel of the Dhamma in Varanasi. So welcome, Mr. Deepak Anand, live from Vaisali in India. Let us hear more from you. And I hope Samanera China had a chance to say hello also. And did you recognize the robe color is different now?
Yeah. I can see, and she's now venerable.
It's not white anymore.
Yeah.
Now in brown robes, training with the Dasasika, the 10 precepts. And
my congratulations to her, and good to see
yes.
you, Aya, after a long time.
Welcome. Let me invite. It's good to see you too.
Yeah, it's mutual.
I've been following his journey just on the internet. And, please go ahead.
Yeah, so nice of you, Venerable, for such a nice introduction. I don't think I deserve that good words. I will try my best. So, I mean, first of all, let me share with you like a small presentation that I have made. This is the small presentation that I have made on. This is basically, I mean, Xuanzang, his contribution to the footsteps of the Buddha, the awareness that we know about the site, it comes from Xuanzang. So Xuanzang was basically a Chinese monk, and in 7th century, because he was not very satisfied with the available text in China because of translation from Sanskrit to Chinese, they were not very perfect. So he made up his mind that he will go to India, especially Nalanda University, and collect the original text. So for that, he took very long journey, like almost like 5,000 miles. All the way you can see this route. He crossed so many big deserts and mountain ranges, and ultimately, after traveling for 6 years, he arrived Nalanda. So he has documented his whole journey in his travelogue. So what happened, after 12th century, gradually Buddhism started declining in India because of the new political climate. So all the Buddhist sites got abandoned. It got converted into ruins. And later on, all these places got new names. Like this is the image of Mahabodhi temple in 1824. I mean, this temple is totally abandoned. You can see it is totally neglected, and nobody had any clue that, I mean, this is the place where Buddha got enlightenment. And this is like, at that time, even the local people, not only local people, I mean, the British people also who came, who were the rulers, they were totally clueless about Indian origin of Buddhism. They thought all these images of Buddha, which is scattered all over the Indian subcontinent, they thought this is of some African god who at some point of time was popular in India. So like in early 19th century, the British people who were also stationed in Sri Lanka, Nepal, Tibet, and all those neighboring countries which were like Buddhist. So when they started their religious text, and they found that all these countries, they have got a common religion, that is Buddhism, and they also found that this religion has got Indian origin. But still, they didn't know the geography. It was only when the travel accounts of Xuanzang and Faxian, the Faxian was another monk scholar from China who came in 5th century. So both of these monk scholars, their travel accounts, this led to discovery of footsteps of the Buddha. So this part of Indian subcontinent, this is the sublime wandering of the Buddha. This is the place where Buddha made his wandering. So these 8 great places were discovered on the basis of travel accounts of both these monks, especially Xuanzang, because his accounts were very detailed and very precise. As Aya was telling, these accounts of Xuanzang was very precise. You can just start from China, just translating and properly, I mean, following his instructions of distance and directions, you can reach all these places. And this is what Britishers did, the explorers of 19th and 20th century. So this is the details of the sublime wandering of the Buddha based on Xuanzang's travel account. See, I mean, the kind of details he has shared. And he has crisscrossed the whole Gangetic plain because wherever he went, people said, oh, if you go this direction, you will find another monastery. There is the place you will find an Ashokan Stupa, Relic Stupa, and all those things. So he crisscrossed all these places in the Gangetic plain. He visited so many places, and he has maintained a very meticulous account of his travels. So this accounts, when it got translated from Chinese to French and then to English in 1830s, 40s, and 50s, it continued. It was a long process of translation. So it transformed our understanding about the Buddhist pilgrimage. And still, I mean, the description of Xuanzang, many places have not been identified, and still this process is going on. And that's what I am doing currently in my foot journey. And this is a very, it's an ongoing process. So, I mean, I just want to share one example of Vaisali. I mean, why these accounts are so important, Xuanzang's accounts, why they are so important. You can see this is Ashokan pillar. When it was discovered in 17th, 18th century, when people got aware about this pillar, people were still not aware about the significance, why this pillar is here. I mean, still when I was going around in Vaisali just 2-3 days back, people still refer to this as Bhimsen ki Lati. I mean, Bhim is a local mythological king. He's very popular in Indian subcontinent from Mahabharata epic. So he was a very giant guy. So, I mean, they say that this pillar was, they say that this is a walking stick of that guy, Bhim. And still people call it Bhimsen ki Lati, I mean, walking stick of Bhim. So it was only when Xuanzang's accounts translated, when we had this Xuanzang's account, we got to know that this, Xuanzang says that this pillar is that place in Vaisali where Buddha, this monkey, Buddha performed this miracle of a monkey offering honey to Buddha. And he says, just near this Ashokan pillar, you will find a water body which was dug by these monkeys. So when the people excavated this site, so they found exactly the details as described by Xuanzang. And still, after excavation, we didn't find any inscription saying what is the significance of Ashokan pillar or the stupas and so many small shrines in this campus. It's only Xuanzang. I mean, if you remove Xuanzang's account, you will be totally ignorant about the significance of anything here. So Xuanzang not only gives description, we not only know about the places, I mean, where the places are located, he also gives detailed description about the shrines in the particular sites. So we are indebted to Xuanzang for his extraordinary contribution. So this is Xuanzang's travel in Gangetic Plain. This is the westernmost part of Buddha's sublime wandering. This is Kuru Empire. So, and this is Panchala, this is Koshala, and this is Kapilavastu, and this is Magadha, this is Vaisali. So this is Xuanzang's travel, this red line. And this green line is my travel. This is my track which I'm taking currently. So I've already walked this part. I could not enter Nepal because of the lockdown, and then I resumed my journey again from India from here, Valmiki Nagar, and I'm currently at Vaisali. So I've almost walked 1,200 kilometers, and I would be finishing this I will be completing this walk by October. So basically, Xuanzang. What surprises me is that by the time Xuanzang came to India, the tradition of about bhikkhunis was like, he doesn't mention much about contributions of bhikkhunis and upasikas. Although if you read Pali literature, the early Buddhist literature, you will find so many references about contributions of great upasikas and great bhikkhunis. But Xuanzang has rarely mentioned about it. I mean, it is not his fault, because he was just doing a pilgrimage and he was just documenting what he was being told. So many of the contributions of bhikkhunis were, I mean, it went out of tradition. The monk community living at all these sites, at all these sacred places, they didn't share anything with him. Probably they were also not much aware about it, because it was almost like 1,000 years, more than 1,000 years after Buddha's Mahaparinirvana. But still, he has given some, he has shared some information about Upasika Visakha and Bhikkhuni Upalavana, Mahapajapati Gautami. So small references here and there. So I'm just gleaning all those information, and I have visited sites, the places associated with this great Upasikas and Bhikkhunis. So I would be sharing some information regarding this, what I have seen during this my foot journey. So first I would talk about Uplavana at Sankasya. We know that Sankasya Buddha descended from heaven after preaching to his mother who at Tushita heaven. So after 3 months, he descended at Sankasya. And according to Buddhist literature, she was welcomed by Bhikkhuni Uplavana. And Fashian and Xuanzang. Fashian came in 5th century. Both of them, they mention about a stupa to mark this event. But you see, when Fashian came, so Fashian mentions about that Uplavana was the first, she thought that because Buddha is arriving from heaven, so there will be many local kings and big people who would be there to see Buddha. And she desired that she should be the first. So because Uplavana was also, she had Idhi power. She was foremost in Idhi power among the Upasika, among the Bhikkhunis. So she transformed herself as a Chakravarti king. I mean, it's Fashian says Buddha read the mind of Uplavana, and he helped her in transforming, into a Chakravarti king, great king, so that she could be first to welcome and see the spiritual body of Buddha. And Fashian says so. But immediately, 200 years after him, Xuanzang comes and he mentions a totally different story. He says that Uplavana, she, again, same thing, that she wanted to see first the spiritual body of the Buddha as he descended from heaven. So since he was having this Idhi power, so she transformed herself into Chakravarti king, and as she was welcoming when Buddha came down, Buddha said to Uplavana that you are not the first. Subhuti already, there was another monk, Subhuti. So he's the first person to see my spiritual body. So, you see how tradition changed. Within 200 years, the contribution of this bhikkhuni, it was downgraded. Fashian says something which was close to what was original event which took place, which is mentioned in Buddhist text. And Xuanzang is differing a lot. I mean, now he's like sort of snubbed by Buddha. She is snubbed by Buddha that no, you are not the first person. So now if you go to Sankasa, so Xuanzang also mentions about a stupa which was dedicated to mark this event. But Sankasa, unfortunately, it is among the only site among the 8 great places which is still not excavated. This mound, you see, this is the village which is settled on this ancient remains of Sankasa. It is still not excavated. So one of the efforts of what I am actually doing in this walk is trying to facilitate awareness about the significance of this place and trying to raise awareness that this site should be excavated. So you can read the whole story of this place on this link, which is there. I was there. I was also stuck there for 2 months during this COVID lockdown. And you can see this is the Ashokan part of Ashokan pillar. This is the elephant capital, which was discovered at this site, which confirmed that this is Sankisa. And I mean, all these 8 great places, they assumed new names. The names were changed. Like, Shravasti became Sahet, Mahabodhi became Bodh Gaya, Nalanda became Badgaon, Vaisali became Bakraur. So all the names got changed. But this is one site where the name didn't change. I mean, this site continued with the same name. This is, I mean, like, one unique experience for me. I mean, like, this was the only site which preserved its ancient name. So this site is totally still unexcavated, and I mean, it's a very sad state that no effort is being made to revitalize this place. Now, second site, which is also important for today's, like in today's Asalha Purnima, and this is Eastern Gate of Kapilavastu. And we know about this site because of Xuanzang. Again, I am mentioning Xuanzang because I'm a big fan of this guy, and we know about this place because of Xuanzang. Still, this site is not properly excavated, but distance and description given by Xuanzang brings us to this place. And this is exactly like what Xuanzang says. I mean, he talks about a big campus and big walled fort-like place. And this is Eastern Gate. And this is very like, this is the place from where 2 very important journey, which is like, I mean, every time I go to this place, the Xuanzang description, it gives life to this place. I mean, you can see what happened there. So though Pali literature says, I mean, other biographical text mentions that the father of Bodhisattva Siddhartha, Sudhodana, he was aware that someday this Bodhisattva Siddhartha will leave. So he made a very strong gate so that nobody can open it. So on the day of Asalha Purnima at the midnight, according to Buddhist literature, these gates automatically opened so that Bodhisattva Siddhartha can embark on the great renunciation, he can leave the palace life. But Xuanzang says a different story. He says he could not. He says that he jumped over the wall. He climbed the wall and then he jumped. So Xuanzang saw a story depicted on the wall. He saw this, all these things mentioned in all the events, the important events which took place in this campus, they were depicted on the wall. It was some mural painting was there. So he saw the exact place where Bodhisattva Siddhartha climbed the wall and jumped. So he saw painting on that wall depicting that sacred action. So this place is it happened. This event happened on Asalha Purnima, and that is today, some few thousand years ago. But this place is also very important to me because this is the place from where another very epic journey of Mahaprajapati Gautami and 500 Shakyan women started from this place. And this journey is very important to me because when Buddha visited Kapilavastu first time in the first year of his enlightenment, so he gave talks at Kapilavastu, and lots of Shakyan people, they participated in that talk. And Mahaprajapati Gautami was also one of them, and she was she was very very accomplished woman, and she had lots of paramis. So in the very first preachings of the Buddha, she became Sotapanna. I mean, that's the initial stage of enlightenment. And she was very willing to join Sangha, but I mean, it was a patriarchal society, and she had to take care of her husband, the father of Buddha, Sudhodana. So she could not join Sangha at that time, but she was willing to practice closely with Buddha and attain Nirvana. So this opportunity came after 3-4 years when Sudhodana died, And there was some dispute between Kolyas and Shakyans for water sharing. So Buddha came to negotiate. And after that, I mean, he went to Kapilavastu. He again gave talks. So 500 Shakyan people, men, they joined Sangha. So they were like, when 500 men joined Sangha, so there were 500 women who were now like, without husband. So, I mean, so this is how, I mean, Indian society, I mean, it's all over the world, like, now husband is not there, so now they don't have duty. So, I mean, now they are free to join Sangha. So Mahapajapati got me and all these women, they got collected and they shared that, come on, why, I mean, only guys can become bhikkhus. Why can't we also become bhikkhunis? Why can't we become part of Sangha? So they went to Buddha and they put their request. Buddha said, no, I mean, this is not feasible. I mean, I don't know whatever words he used, but he was not against, he didn't mean that, I mean, men and women are not equal. He simply said, I mean, for him, I mean, women can also become enlightenment. They're equally capable. But it's that Bhikkhuni Sangha is not required, because Sangha's job is to preserve the teachings, and these guys are, men are Bhikkhu Sangha is doing that job. So let it carry on with that thing. I mean, Bhikkhunis, this women can stay at their home and they can practice, and they can also attain nirvana like any men can do. But these women were very determined. They were like, say no. I mean, we want to have a Bhikkhuni Sangha as well. So after Buddha left, after denying this request, Buddha went to Vaisali. So this lady, they got collected and said, no, come on, let's go to Vaisali and make a request again. So they started from this place, and I have walked this part of this stretch. I was not allowed to go to Nepal, but I have walked this Indian stretch from here to Vaisali. And it's like, 300 kilometer stretch, and I took like, 10 days. So they must have taken also 10 days. And the other day I was talking to Aya, and she said they walked during the monsoons, and I also did during the monsoons. I just arrived here 3 days back, and all last 10 days when I was walking this trail, it was raining wherever I went. And this trail, I mean, in spite of modern roads and like, shoes and mobile phone and all those roadside eateries, still, I mean, every time I was reminded, I mean, just 2000 years ago, what the situation must be. Wherever I stayed during this walk in the villages, people were sharing me how this is like, this was forest just 50, 60 years ago. And people shared with me how tigers and leopard and bears, they would enter their villages. There were so many stories. So the point why I'm saying this is that at the time of when this 500 courageous and committed women, when they took this trail, this must be like, very dangerous trail. And just imagine this woman walking barefooted. I mean, many of them were like, very old and fragile. Still, I mean, when the Pali literature says when they arrived at Vaisali, their feet were wounded. I mean, they were all wounded. I mean, they were bleeding. But they came all prepared. I mean, they had removed their hair and they had put on robes. They were like, half prepared when they came to make request. So my idea was, I was talking to Bhikkhuni Tathaloka the other day, that why can't we do this trail from Eastern Gate, from Tilarakota Palace City, Kapilavastu to Vaisali? I mean, not necessarily walking, on bus also. Because this will be a great tribute to this courageous journey. I mean, this extraordinary journey that took. I mean, I have not come across any such great march by this committed women, and they didn't go for, I mean, some picnic or some like, some business deal. They didn't travel for to move to some good place. No, they were determined for they had some purpose. They wanted to have a Bhikkhuni Sangha. They were determined people. So they took such a difficult journey. So we should have I was talking to Venerable Tathaloka the other day that, I mean, we should celebrate this journey. And this would also be like, acknowledgement to the continued struggle of Bhikkhunis for the full ordination. I mean, this is a great, extraordinary historic event, which has no parallel still. I mean, I don't see anything like this, which has happened in history. So, and then they arrived at Vaisali. So this is like, this is the map of Vaisali. These are the ancient remains. And this is, I have plotted the description of Xuanzang on the, like, the Google image of Vaisali. So based on Xuanzang description, these three dots, like this is Ashokan pillar site, this is the relic stupa of the Buddha, and this is the palace city. So these sites were identified on the basis of Xuanzang. No further effort was made to explore and excavate the other site which was mentioned by Xuanzang, because those other sites mentioned by Xuanzang were already like, people were living at those places. So government didn't do much intervention. But since people are living there, I mean, but still the sanctities associated with these places are still, the sanctity is eternal. So based on Xuanzang description, this is the place where Buddha was staying. This is the place where this Putagashala, the double gallery Vihara, was here. So all this Mahapajapati Gautami and this 500 Shakan women, they probably arrived somewhere here. And so they made request, and we know the story that Ananda, then Buddha again, he continued to say no, no, no. And ultimately they met Ananda, and Venerable Ananda, he intervened and he negotiated, and finally with some more precepts and some more conditions, Bhikkhuni Sangha was, it took place. So this historic event took place somewhere here, this whole area. And I visited during this, my stay at Vaisali. I keep coming and I keep exploring. So during this time also I went to these places. And there are very few, as I mentioned, Xuanzang has given very few instances of places associated of bhikkhunis and upasikas. Like, if you go to Rajgir, if you see Pali literature, they have so many mentions about contributions of upasikas and venerable nuns, bhikkhunis from Rajgir, Khema, and then upasika Kali, and there are many such instances. But when Xuanzang goes to Rajgir, he's totally like, he doesn't talk about anything, because he was not told so, and there was no tradition left. So there are only few places, and idea is that all these few places which are, we are aware about those places because of Xuanzang, we should revitalize those places. In spite of people living there, we can do something that people get aware about the significance of those places. The people living there, they should get aware about the significance of those places. So another place which Xuanzang mentions about Mahapajapati Gautami is the place where Mahapajapati Gautami and 500 Shakyan women, they attend Parinirvana. So that place is here. So this is the place where they got ordained and the Bhikkhuni Sangha took place. And this is the village, present village where this Mahapajapati Gautami, there's a story that when Buddha announced his Mahaparinirvana, impending Mahaparinirvana at Kapala Chaitya in Vaisali, so when Bhikkhuni Mahapajapati Gautami, Mahathiri, she got to know about this thing, she went to Buddha and she said, I should be attaining Parinirvana before you. So she came back, and this is the place, this is the village where she attended. Xuanzang mentions about very miraculous Parinirvana of this was like very celebrated event, and that is why even at the time of Xuanzang this tradition continued and he could share with us. So I visited this village. This village is presently Birpur, and now this landscape is totally changed because this Vaishali is situated on the eastern bank of Gandak, and Gandak river is very notorious for changing its courses. It has got many tributaries and it keeps changing courses. So the site where Mahapajapati Gautami was there, so probably this site was under river for centuries. So the population migrated from the site, were all buried. It got drowned for centuries. It was underwater. So if you go in this village now, you can see this people were like, I was 3 days back, I was there. So people are doing this paddy plantation there. And you can see these two mounds. I could not go close because it's surrounded by water, very deep water. And Xuanzang talks about stupa to mark the miraculous parinirvana of Mahapajapati Gautami. So probably this was also the place. This place was also where Amrapali, her residence was also here. So probably all these people, they lived in the village of Amrapali. So there was a stupa to mark Mahaparinirvana of Mahapajapati Gautami. So probably these mounds which we can see, they are very low mounds. So this could be the stupa. I'm not sure, but this could be so. And even if it's not there, but Xuanzang description says this is the location. So idea is to revitalize all these places. So I'm also working with local people, especially there's a Buddha World School here. I'm staying in their campus right now. I'm talking from this place, from this school. And I'm trying to work with this school so that children who belong to these villages, they get to know about this place. And slowly in coming 5 to 10 years, the awareness comes about the significance of this place. And slowly We can have some shrine here dedicated to Bhikkhuni Sangha, dedicated to Mahapajapati Gautami and Bhikkhunis. So that, I mean, again, this tradition is not lost because, I mean, Xuanzang, because of Xuanzang, he talks only, as I mentioned, he talks very few instances about contributions of Bhikkhunis and Upasikas. So we have to, again, I mean, like, establish it so that it is not lost again. So this is Vaisali, and this is Sarnath. This is the place very important for Asalha Purnima. On Asalha Purnima, Bodhisattva Siddhartha left palace, and Asalha Purnima, after 6 years, same day, he gave his first talk at this place. So we know this sequence of events after Buddha's enlightenment under the Bodhi tree at Uruvela. He was not very sure. I mean, he was undecided. He was not sure he should share this finds with the world, with the people. So, I mean, he spent there 7 weeks, and ultimately, finally, there was some divine intervention. Brahma Sahamapati, he came down and he requested him that, I mean, this is a very great opportunity. Don't waste this opportunity. Please share your finds with the world. So then with his divine, he thought that these teachings are, I mean, very profound and ordinary people, normal people won't be able to understand, so comprehend his teaching. So he thought about 2 of his previous teachers, Uddak Ramaputra and Alara Kalama. With his divine eyes, he saw that both of them are no more. So it was very unfortunate. So because he thought that they were very capable and they could have understood what he just attained. So second thought was, then he thought about the 5 of his friends, 5 of his companions who were there with him for 6 years of austerities. And just, I mean, few days before enlightenment, when Bodhisattva Siddhartha left the austere practices and he started taking food. So these people thought that, come on, now this guy is wasted our time and I mean, energy. We were here because he was doing some extraordinary efforts, austere practices. And we were hopeful that this would lead to some great find. But now that he has accepted food, taking food, so he has given up. So Buddha, through his divine eyes, saw that these 5 of his previous companions now are at Rishipattana near Varanasi. So Buddha walked from that place, and so these people they had made up their mind that, I mean, now this Bodhisattva Siddhartha doesn't deserve any respect. So when they saw Buddha coming towards them, so they just discussed among themselves that, I mean, let's not give any respect to him now. I mean, he's a hopeless case. He has lost this austere practices, so we should not give any attention to him. But as Buddha approached, he had a great aura, because he was just enlightened. So these people, they could not resist. I mean, they automatically stood up and they started venerating. So then Buddha told that, I mean, I have already found the truth and I would like to share with you. So they said, oh, come on, that is very good news. So again, I would talk about Xuanzang, my hero. And this is the place Chaukhandi Stupa. Now it is called Chaukhandi Stupa. This place, according to Xuanzang, the 5 people, this 5 of his previous companions, they met Buddha here. This place, this stupa was to mark that event. And we know about this place because of Xuanzang. Otherwise, it got excavated and still we don't have any, any inscription to say the significance of this place. So similarly, this is like, the excavated site plan of the excavated site. And there are so many monuments to commemorate and celebrate this first turning of the wheel of Dhamma. And you can see this is like, this is a site plan. So there are so many votive stupas, and this is the 2 big stupas. This is Dhammek Stupa. Dhammek Stupa means this one. This is Dhammek Stupa. And this is another, they say this was relic stupa of the Buddha. And this got destroyed in 18th century. And so these are monasteries. But then Xuanzang says, so where is the exact place where Buddha took seat and preached the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta? So according to Xuanzang, this is that place. And he says that Ashokan pillar, this is the, based on Xuanzang, when this site was excavated. So you can see this is the broken Ashokan pillar. And this is the capital, lion capital, which was like, four lion on the 4, to depict the 4 cardinal direction. So that, I mean, it says that teachings of the Buddha was so profound, it will, I mean, spread in all the directions. like the sound of lion. So according to Xuanzang, this is the exact place where Buddha took seat when he preached this the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. So we are again indebted to this Xuanzang for his extraordinary contribution. We know about the places and the shrines in these locations because of Xuanzang. So this is Sarnath. So this is like, you know, the broad objectives of my this food journey that we are doing. This is a small team of us, and our objective is to revitalize, because, you know, if you go to these places, like, you know, if you go to Shravasti, people go to Jetavana only, but just close to Jetavana, there are other shrines like the Kubarama, the monastery offered by Upasika Vishaka. So people are not aware of it. People don't go there because that is not an excavated site. That is not a protected site by Archaeological Survey of India. So people are not aware of all those sites, small shrines around the main site. Like if you go to Bodh Gaya, then it is surrounded by many other smaller shrines which people normally don't go. They just go to Bodh Gaya temple and they make offerings and they go back. So objective of this project, this walk, is to raise awareness about the lesser known shrines which is surrounding the main shrines of all these important places. Then another important objective of this project is walking pilgrimage trails, because many people around the world, they would love to walk the trails which Buddha once walked. So I'm also in the process of identifying what can be the possible trails and what are the closest possible trails, like just like that I have just mentioned to you about the trail taken by Mahapajapati Gautami and 500 Shakyans. So similarly, I mean, I would be coming up with a detailed story about the various walking trails which one can take, I mean, if he wants to take. And lastly, I mean, like, you know, to celebrate and commemorate the contributions of world citizen Xuanzang. I mean, in India, we generally refer Xuanzang as a traveler. I mean, as if he's just an ordinary person, ordinary traveler, but I mean, his contributions are extraordinary. If you remove Xuanzang's travel accounts, you are totally unaware about the places and the sacred shrines at those places. If you go to Mahabodhi temple, it's just Mahabodhi temple. You will never know what is the significance of the small shrines which is surrounding Mahabodhi temple. Similarly, if you go to Shravasti, you will just see the remains. You will never know what are these individual monasteries and what is the significance of all the shrines. So, I mean, it's everywhere. If you go to Lumbini, it's same. Kapilavastu, same. So he is not an ordinary person. The teachings of the Buddha has been preserved by Venerable Sangha all over the world. But he is the only monk besides Fashian who have preserved the footsteps of the Buddha. So he deserves he deserves all gratitude from all of us, all the followers of the teachings of the Buddha. So this is all I have to say. I mean, if yeah, so this was a brief presentation